Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our subject, multilinguistic. And the last time I have sent you reading materials regarding the subject, multilinguistic. This time I have to continue with our lesson, my first discussion regarding its vocabulary, the metalinguistic awareness, and language dominance among bilingual. When we say multilinguistic, this refers to different genre of how to become a linguist person. Now let us study the awareness of language structure that has been studied in bilinguals. But there is limited research on how language dominance is related to meta-linguistic awareness and whether meta-linguistic awareness predicts vocabulary size. You have to be aware that as an English major, you are supposed to be well equipped of different vocabularies. You have to read your Webster's dictionary, you have to read your Merriam-Webster dictionary, or from time to time you have to at least learn some vocabularies which can be found anytime at the Google. Now, there is what we call language dominance among bilingual students or bilingual people or bilingual children that can be defined by their relative proficiency in its language. There are also limited research on how to relate the metalinguistic awareness and whether metalinguistics awareness predicts vocabulary size. Now, let us study the vocabulary of monolingual and bilingual. Now, let us identify when we say mono, that's meaning one, but bilingual, it can be two, precisely. Now, let me tell you a little background of the research about monolingual and bilingual. Studies show that bilingual children or bilingual students scores below monolingual age-appropriate norms when vocabulary size is assessed in only one of their language. But most of the people, especially Filipinos, can speak different languages. For I myself, I can speak Thai and also the dialects, the vernacular language in the Philippines. I can speak Ilocano, a little bit uh, Igorot. And in my place, I speak three languages because I speak Cebuano, Bisaya, and also my identity, which is Manobo language or the Banwaan language. I have that kind of knowledge, at least. Now, there are so many research regarding to monolingual or and bilingual distinct differences. Um, there is what we call it varies from language dominance among bilinguals. So meaning dominance, what language do you use to say, do you use every day in your daily conversation? Of course, sometimes you always like to speak Bisaya because that is your language. But when you arrive here in my place, here in Agusan del Sur, we speak Banwaon. Although some of the natives or some of the hosts or the communities or the community people are actually speaking their Visayan language. Now, the term language dominance is used in the literature either for describing the relative proficiency of a bilingual person in the two languages, or for the language of the bilingual speaker has been mostly exposed to which both researchers and language therapists face is how to define dominance. Now, what really dominates? What language really dominates in your in your daily conversation? Of course, for myself, I at home I usually speak English because my son is speaking English, and sometimes he cannot understand vernacular language. Although he is very smart in accepting those languages. In fact, when he came here in my place, he was able to learn the Banwaon language. That makes him bilingual. Now, what about the language proficiency? Now, the language proficiency of bilinguals is often associated with the extent to which vocabulary size in one or both languages meets the norms set for age-matched monolinguals. How do you understand norms? Norms, when you say norms, that is the preparable standard that is acceptable by the society. Uh, Acceptable in general rule. Now, there are research that bilingual children's performance may be more varied than monolingual performance as a result of the diversity in their language learning experience. Now, how do you understand that? Diversity in their language learning experience. From time to time, we are going to experience different experiences. When you travel to a different places, or to the most exotic places, or to the most indigenous places, the most indigent place, you will able you will be very surprised of their language used, because in our country we have we have a lot of dialects or vernaculars all over the archipelago, from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. In my place, we have here subdivisions of Manobo language. We have Higaonon language. We also have Banwaon language. Now, but these two languages stresses in distinct meanings because more or less people here are bilingual just like myself. I can speak both Higaonon language or dialect, and I can also speak uh, Banwaon language. These are the standard or the norms. Now, let us also study about the meta-linguistic awareness. Now, meta-linguistic awareness is defined as the ability to distance oneself from the content of speech in order to reflect upon and manipulate the structure of language. How do you understand that? Meaning, the meta-linguistic awareness requires the speaker to focus on the structure and form of the language and develops in the later stages of language acquisition. Now, they see that language can be learned. In fact, when I went to Thailand, at in my first month, it was very difficult for me to relate with the people because I have zero knowledge when it comes to their language, and the people there are not really fond of speaking English. They are very patriotic. They are very nationalistic. They love their culture. They love their own language. So it was very hard for me to relate myself, especially when a stranger or a tourist. Well, I wasn't a tourist during that time because I was hired as a teacher. It was very difficult for me. That was a difficult experience because whenever I want to go to the market, I cannot just go out easily. Why? Because of the language barrier. I have a zero knowledge of their Thai language. But as time progressed, I was able to catch up those words, especially the daily language, what, where, and when. For example, in Thailand, we have where, they call it T9, T9, where, like that. Go, pai talat. I'm going to market. Where? T9, So that's it. That is the meta-linguistic awareness. But for the meantime, I think I have discussed more time. So I have to end up my video teaching for at this moment, but I have to continue my discussion later and in the next video. For the meantime, be sure to reflect, be sure to analyze what I am trying to discuss. I might be giving you a lot of questions after my discussion. Thank you for listening.